The history of the black church in America is a long and sometimes a sordid one. From the beginning of their journey in America, the children of Africa have had to face horrendous atrocities, but all along the way they have taken everything thrown at them in dignity, not only surviving but thriving and changing the face of American culture along the way, and religion is no different. From the moment the first Africans arrived on American soil in 1619 in modern-day Virginia, Africans were confronted with a new religion called Christianity, which many of them had never experienced before. This strange new religion, with a tame and sometimes disappassionate worship style, was a mystery to many, and as a result, many first-generation Africans held to their indigenous ancestral religions until death. But within 3 generations, many enslaved Africans and freedmen alike began to embrace the dominant religion of the land, especially through the large revivals known as the First and Second Great Awakenings. During these Great Awakenings, large portions of American Christianity pulled away from the ritual and quiet ceremony of Anglicanism and began to emphasize powerful charismatic preaching and the call to personal relationship with Jesus Christ, the Jesus Christ who reminded many former Africans of some of the powerful deities of their historic religions. Conversions to Christianity became a major trend here in the 1700s, not only due to the revivals, but largely through the fiery preaching of traveling slave and freedmen preachers throughout the South. As such, for more than a century, an invisible institution existed among Africans who gathered together under the cover of darkness, down in brush arbors and secret clearings, away from the watchful eye and the ear of their white counterparts. Even as small numbers of black Christians began to join white churches in the few places where they were allowed, black believers still gathered regularly in secret, worshiping and singing and shouting in their own way. But after more than a century and a half of worshiping in the invisible institution, several black communities began during the last decade of the 1700s to form their own churches. As rigid white supremacist rhetoric took root more and more in and out of the churches, racism amped up in the North and the South. As folks looking to secure the racialized chattel slave system strengthened rhetoric about black inferiority, any intermixing of blacks and whites and any space of equal treatment of blacks had to be done away with, even in the house of God. This type of sick thinking is best exhibited by a popular pamphlet entitled Slavery Defended from Scripture, which was published by the prominent Methodist preacher Alexander McCain. As black members of white churches across the North began to be more systematically mistreated and at some points even disfellowshipped from their churches, black worshipers started to pool resources and to build their own congregations. Sometimes these churches formed from splits from white churches, and sometimes they formed as prayer bands gathered together into official public communities of faith. By the turn of the 18th century, independent black churches began to turn up all throughout the nation, including right here in Brooklyn, several of which we will learn more about in the weeks to come. Across denomination, across geography, and across socioeconomic status, blacks in America began to descend out from under the shadows of the brush arbors and to build their own churches, which rivaled the strongest churches in American society. Churches that began to focus with laser-like precision on remedying the plight of free and enslaved blacks through education, social services, community banking, and political organizing, specifically against the greatest evil of their day, the chattel slavery system.